Welcome to this episode of The State of the Black Man's Mental Health. I am Paige Benjamin, one half of Getting Cheese Back on My Cracker. And recently, I just entered the union with my beautiful wife, who just makes me happy. And some of the people that are on here to join us were witnesses, some weren't. But what it made me realize was during one of our meetings, during one of our dinners, we had friends and families jump on and kind of have a dialogue around the impacts that we had individually, as well as the impact that we've had as a couple on the different people in our lives, and on the different peoples in our lives. And this brought to me the idea of how relationships have an impact on our mental health. And so, what we want to talk about today is the impact of relationships on our mental health and how we maintain those. And so, before we continue, I want to tell everybody please subscribe to the channel, like, comment, enable that notification button so that we can let people know when and where when we drop new episodes. And so, with that being said, I want to kind of start the conversation. Um, my name is Paige Benjamin from Atomic Travels, and I really wanted to kind of touch on the idea of how relationships and our mental health. Before we bring on our guest, it was really important that I got myself together before starting my union. And one of the things that I realized was that sometimes you got to work on yourself before you bring somebody else into your circle. And in doing so, you learn that some of the things that you struggled with in the past weren't things that were related to others, or related to how others treated you, but how you let others treat you. Um, I say all that to say because I realized that I was putting myself into situations where I was allowing people to fix me as if I was a broken puppy or a broken toy. And I realized that over time, that necessarily wasn't something that I wanted. And so, as I started to prepare myself for this venture in life with my life partner, my wife, my best friend, Jacqueline Jackson, now Benjamin, I started to realize I want somebody that's here to push me, not necessarily to develop me into something that they envision me to be. And so, with that being said, I'm going to bring on my good brother Copeland onto the stage. Brother Copeland, how you doing? Tell us who you are.
I'm good. I'm the man.
You are the man. You are the man. Okay, the man. How's
I've
everything
been
going on
listening.
with
I've been listening to Nas a lot last night. He helped
you?
try
Okay.
to help me. I realized I've been cocooning for like the past 5 months.
Really? Why is that?
I was evolving. Like I'm getting better at what I do. Like
Okay. So speaking of better what you do, we maintain a lot of relationships in our lives throughout our lives, right? How are you able to manage all these relationships and still maintain like your mental health or your peace to an extent?
I don't manage any of them. I leave them
Mm,
to like. I feel like for me, the friendships that I have, they flow, and the driving force is the love that we have. So unless that love is broken in some way, shape, or form, time only strengthens the bond. It doesn't necessarily break it or dim it unless it wasn't real.
hmm.
So
Elaborate a little more.
I have a pretty small circle because I tend to pop in and out of society and reality. Not reality, but society. You know, like I go on my own thing, I
Reality, you
disappear.
were right when you
Yeah.
said it. It was a
Okay.
Freudian
Yeah.
slip.
Yeah. Like I get out of here and I go do like I left New York and I moved to California and I stayed.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the midst of like my transition, sometimes, like I said, I cut off my communication. And the people that know that, like the people that are closest to me now, they all know that I'm like literally my LBs today. They were telling me that they felt like I had something coming because they felt like I was going through like a phase shift. And I am, and I felt it. And I fought it for a while. But I know that things are getting different because I was able to channel people
Hmm.
who are actually alive. You know, I have some
Mm.
great relationships with older Black people who I feel are wise. And I was literally able to hear their conversation, kind of like the Avatar.
Hmm.
And I had it with myself, and it helped me to reconcile something that I was really struggling with.
Mm. So
But
let
I'm
me
good
ask you
now.
this. So what were you saying?
No, I fixed it. Well, I didn't fix it, but I got out of it and I saw how it works, and it worked really well.
Okay. So let me ask you this question: how are you able to determine when the relationship is good for you or not? I'll start with friendships, right? So how do you determine when friendships are good or bad for you?
So, to be honest, there's different levels of friendship,
Okay.
and then there's different stages and phases of friendship. And for the most part, it's about how you feel. You know, like it's really about an energetic connection. And if you have that, then you know, it feels good. Almost
Okay.
everything that you do, whether it's growing or chilling or working or whatever. But it sometimes it takes time. But then some
Mm.
people you connect with immediately. Like we connected right away, and
Right.
it
Right.
wasn't like fleeting. Like we're actually, it's like what, like you didn't have no fucking gray hairs. Like I was talking to Rashad, he called me. He's like, "Who the fuck is that?" I'm like, "You don't know that." So it's it's hard because there's no formula.
Mm.
You know, like you just can, it's like imagine you have a room full of hydrogen. They can all exist by themselves, but eventually some of them are gonna hit together and create helium. But you never really know. You can't predict which one is gonna do it. It should just kind of happen.
Okay. Okay. And so now let's go into romantic relationships, right? So
I
as
have no idea. I literally don't know.
so, I mean, so
I haven't made one work yet.
let's take a couple steps back, right? Because
Okay.
this is also a point of reflection, right?
Yes.
Is it takes two for good and or bad relationships to occur, right? And so
Mhm.
at the end of the day, I'll kind of just step out and talk about my situations, right? So I know for me, um, you know, best relationship I've had is the one I have right now, right? In the sense of I kind of knew at the early onset of my relationship that this is it, right? I am no longer looking, no need to look any further. Let's move forward with um let's move forward with life. And what the reason I was able to get here was because of the past that didn't work, the past things that I thought I wanted, right? The things that I thought I wanted, um, and I realized were not good for me, right? And the things that I realized I didn't want people to do to me, right? And so
Mhm.
I think although you didn't have a successful relationship, right, or haven't had successful relationships, one of your relationships create the most amazing thing in your life right now. And at some point or another,
Yes.
you had to have a discerning factor to determining do I want to have a lifetime with this
You
person?
don't even want to know. You don't even want to know what it was. You don't even want to know.
Okay.
You do. Do you people? Do the people in the world want to know? Okay, so you see this meme out on social media right now where the girl is like, "I shot my shot by sending over some wings." Right?
Right.
That shit literally
Mm-hmm.
melted my heart. Because if I'm
Mm,
sitting at a bar and some girl sends me wings, like she can have whatever the fuck she wants. And I was
mm,
just explaining it to Deb and Takia. It's like this is the feeling. It's not the fact. And I know it's not the fact because you love me. And I was just saying, Deb and Takia, like we have we all have a really good relationship, and I have a lot of love around me. But when in the world, it just feels like nobody's fucking kind to us. You know, it feels like we're
Well,
always battling.
let's. So, are you saying that in the sense of a romantic relationship that you haven't found someone kind to you?
No, what I'm saying is that when you're kind to me, because of the everyday life, you get like your wheels get greased
Mm,
because it's like you're almost it's like you're ticklish to it. You're hypersensitive to it because it doesn't happen out there as much. Like when it happens, it's always like family. You know, like you're
mm.
my brother. So of course you fucking deal with me and you know you fuck with me and shit regardless. But the average person doesn't have to.
So because of that, are you saying that as it relates to romantic life, right, in determining that romantic relationship, is it safe to say you've identified the things that you don't want in a woman that's and hopefully it opens up to what you want, or are you still trying to figure out what that could look like for you?
No, I know exactly what I want in a woman. I want a woman that knows herself
Mm,
and is tapped into her divine feminine because I believe differently than the average person, I guess, in America. I know that we believe that men are leaders, but I study nature. And men aren't really the leaders. They dominate, they execute. Let's
mm,
take the elephants, for example. When the male elephant, that's usually the one that charges, you know, the caravan or whatever, and everybody backs up, what usually happens after that? The rest of the elephants cross. So
mm-hmm,
why did he actually charge us? Because he doesn't gore anybody, right? Why did he do that? Because she told him to.
mm.
And there's literally, I would have to think hard, but I don't know of any real species is that is like the males are come and go. You know, like the pride of lions, the male's only there for 2 years. That pride is actually the women.
Mm.
And then the men just come in and serve their purpose until they can't serve their purpose anymore. But the purpose is the lineage and the legacy in the future.
Got you, got you.
So for them it's okay. And for us here in America, we have different, like everybody has a different set of what makes them successful.
So would you say in this case that your ability to identify that in a woman is far and few in between, or you're just haven't gotten there yet?
I would say that in people it's far and few in between. Like so many of us are struggling, you know, with something.
Hmm.
And so we're trying to survive. And we've been like that for a very long time. Like
Mm.
I have the luxury of being a gypsy nomad for a while.
A
So
while? What's a
yeah,
while? Like
like
30, 20 years, almost
like
20
two
years?
decades. Yeah, like
You're
two
right,
fucking full
right, right.
decades. So
Hmm.
I know myself very, very well. And like I used to think that I had no discipline, right? But it's not that I have no discipline. I just don't have any tolerance for shit I don't want to do. But in this world, in order to retain your constitution through all of the shit that you have to go through, that shit takes massive discipline. You know how much somebody would pay me to be somebody else?
Mm,
Like, do you know how much somebody would pay me to put on a suit and talk nice about their shit?
mm.
Like, there's a lot of money in that, but I don't want it. Like, I'm not really so much looking for a dollar figure. I'm more so looking for a lifestyle.
So so your mate would be fitting your lifestyle? Is that what you're saying?
My mate would have to be someone who knows themselves. When I say know yourself, what I mean is that you know your concept. I think that the great people in the world know who they are, and the great thing that they do is just an expression of that.
Okay.
You know, so I would need somebody who knows who they are and wants to express that to the world, more so our community, because we need as much fucking help as we can. So a person for me would have to be like that and dedicated to the community because I am as well. So you're going to have to understand my motivation and how I move. And when we see the kids, you have to know that that is the thing that drives the
Got you.
world for them.
Got you. So I'm gonna move forward to siblings,
Yes,
right? So can siblings be good or bad for you, the relationships you have with your siblings?
absolutely.
How so?
fucking million ways. Like you don't have to get along with your siblings just because you grow up together. Like you guys can be petty, like they can be selfish, they can be evil. Like we've seen The Good Son, anybody that's old enough to see that. And like they can help to reinforce things that you feel like insecure people. You could have siblings that call you ugly or whatever. But every single one of those bad things, there's a converse to them.
Mm.
So it's it's really good when you have a big community, when you have a community that's extended past family and extended family, because you just need certain slots. I feel like need to be filled, and if you can find people that fill them, then you're good. Because I was talking to my mom about my father, and my father's a great guy. You know what I mean? He's a great man. He came over here and he slaved and he had houses. He put me in private school and everything. He did his thing. But I'm like, I asked my mom, why doesn't he like reggae music? And he's from Jamaica. And it's that I didn't really understand that he didn't grow up. Like he grew up before that, when reggae music was rebel music. So for
Hmm.
me, I need an older person who understands my path, because my father's path is not my path. And so I have that. And I've had that in many places. So I don't need that from my dad. So to me, my dad is not deficient.
Okay.
He's way more than sufficient. Because I mean, at the end of the day, 23 of his fucking chromosomes made me. You know what I mean? Like the man gotta have son.
Oh man, I need to have a conversation with him.
You don't want to talk to him. You don't want to talk to him.
Listen, this is gonna be a conversation. He's gonna be like, you know what? I should have pulled out. I'm just joking.
He doesn't. He doesn't. But the thing is that, like, because I said, because of the mindset that he has around life, he's more of a conservative Republican, if you can believe it. And so the mindset that he has around life, he doesn't actually see my value.
Hmm.
And but that I guess because I'm 42 now, so I'm not really looking for his validation. Like it's more like I'm a father now too. Like
Yeah. So
I'm in
that
my
leads me to the next portion, right? Like, you know, the relationship we have with our children, right? Now, I think that's kind of it's it's a weird statement to state because you're the parent, they're the child. But I think there should be a relationship between parent and child, right?
there's a dynamic.
Because the dynamic allows for a cohesive communication style, right? Because what was our upbringing? Do as I say, not as I do. You don't talk back to parent. You don't talk to adults unless adults are speaking to you, right? Which seems like it's a shift from how you and your son operate, right?
Yes,
So your son is more of a friend slash minion, right,
yes.
to you. And so, how do you determine? How did you get to the point of determining how that relationship gets built? And then, how does
I,
that because on live today, on both instances, you really mentioned how you give your son all the grace in the world, as opposed to everybody gets at least one try or one chance. So, like, how do you kind of like, where one did you get that idea of he gets all the grace and then everybody gets at least one try at it versus, once again, going through this vicious cycle of how we were raised?
so factually, simply, scientifically, child developmental psychology. He's a fucking 4-year-old. Like he's gonna do. He's just got here. He's trying to figure things out. Now adults are not. They don't give me the grace that my son gives me. So like he's very very smart and he can believe that something is right, and he'll try and try and try, and then I'll be like, all right, let me show you. And he'll be like, okay, and then I'll show him. And you ask Alade, his favorite saying that Autumn does, he's like, oh. So the thing that I realized is that I have to mentor this young man. I have
Mm.
to. And then, so one of the things I had to do is I had to reconcile the fact that my dad was an old Jamaican man who came here to work and take care of his family, and understand that he did 100% of what he came here to do. The man succeeded. He had houses like I don't have a house yet. He had three, you know. So I'm actually standing on the shoulders of giants.
Mm.
So now I have to provide the financial stability, but I have to do more. And now we know more. And as I know more and I understand more, I can do more for my son. And it's the goldfish in the bowl syndrome. You know, the more safe space I can create for him to grow without my interference, the more he's going to start figuring things out. And just like I said about the woman, I want him to know who he is and express that to the world. And I'll do everything I can to grease those wheels. That's what bridge building's about.
Got you, got you. So when it comes to dealing with issues in your relationships, right? Um, how do you deal when issues of the past come up? Perfect example, if you're in a romantic relationship, right? And something happened that triggered a past behavior of yours, that leads to it coming back up. How do you deal with that in a sense of moving in hopes of moving forward?
So what I've learned, what I've noticed is that if I decide that I'm going to give somebody the space to attempt to be my romantic partner, that I do give them certain graces. But what I've learned my triggers become with them is my real world shit. So like I had somebody try and tell me that because I always say y'all, but I don't mean like y'all African, because my parents are Caribbean. I don't mean like y'all African Americans. Like I look at the diaspora as a whole. I mean y'all humans. Like
Hmm.
I separate myself from everybody on the planet. Like it's not like it's not like I feel like I'm better than this group of black people or that group of black people. Like I feel like I'm better than that group of like humans, which is everybody on
Mm.
Earth. And I don't even mean it like that, but it's just like that's how I'm talking, and I don't mean anything by it. But I talk with a little bit of intensity, so it was interpreted that way, and I was being told that I feel this way or whatever, and it actually hurt my feelings
Mm.
because you know how I fuck with the shit. So it's like who the fuck are you talking to? So when my feelings get hurt, I get defensive because that's the kid being hurt,
Mm.
and then the warrior comes out. Like the kid will get nurtured somewhere back there, but out here, like you don't get to see nurturing.
Right.
Like when you
Right.
hurt my feelings, you're not gonna get to see me reconcile it or whatever. I'm gonna go take care of that. But the warrior is now here.
So let's stay there for a second, right? So you mentioned you're gonna go take care of that, right? Now, similar to me, and I we're kind of on the same plane. We tend to have a lot of sisters around. Like there's a lot of feminine energy around us at all times, right? And sometimes we will bring these issues that you're turning into this warrior, right, in
Yeah.
conversation, but after the fact, and you realize in hindsight, I should have reached out to such and such and say, hey, where I'm at with this. When you reach out to a friend about the issues that you're dealing with, right, especially on the feminine side, you know do you communicate when they should be listening versus when they should be providing guidance or help? Because I think it's a two-way thing, right? When women come to us with an issue, we're quick to try to resolve it, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's the same the other way around. But how are they to know?
No. The answer is no.
No.
Because when I'm coming to them, so here's why.
Oh.
When we Yes, we are coming to you for venting. We are definitely coming to you for venting because when you think about it, any real confident man doesn't look at an obstacle as, oh my God, this is gonna kill me. It's more like I got this shit to deal with, and then it's usually I got this shit to deal with because this nigga didn't do his job. And so it's a whole bunch of annoyance and upsetness. But there isn't a thing that you can put before me that I want to accomplish that I'm ever going to look at as that I can't accomplish. It just, you know, some things
So
just take a little bit longer.
So with that statement being said, could that easily be misconstrued as
Absolutely.
masculinity?
Absolutely. It's absolutely hypermasculinity because I don't, and it literally only takes one sentence to change it. And it's
Right.
like, I came here to vent. And then that turns the confusion into more of a unit and a partnering of the thing happening.
And so the venting aspect is just to be heard, or is it,
To
you
get the shit
know,
off your chest. You're literally emotional. Like, and you want to hit somebody. You want to hit somebody. Me, I be wanting to hit people all the time. But I know that if I hit somebody with the anger that I have, I'm going to hurt my hand because I haven't hit
mm,
somebody in a long time. My shit is probably rubbery. So it's like it's coming out because usually when we're venting, we're fed up because we take a lot and we shoulder it because we're supposed to. But it's not even so much we're supposed to. And I want people to really understand this. Think about it like this. Don't think about it as woman and man, right? Just understand where, let's say we have a great man right here who really wants to take care of and protect his family. Is he going to really put his problems on them like regularly? Like, here, hold this. Like, here, hold this. No. He wants them to live a life where they don't, anything that's happening, I want to take care of it out there
mm.
before it even comes in here. I want in there to be all joy. Like when I come in there, I want the shit to be soft. I want to be able to take off my armor that I've had on for 36 hours, have it be a nice little lavender misty type of thing. That's what I want in there. And I don't know that that's ever been articulated, but that's a big part of what it is. You know, we passionately, like I said this earlier, we want to love desperately, but we're afraid. And then you can see it in our behaviors. That's why everybody's got all of this stuff going on because everybody desperately wants to be loved, and not just romantically, but all around. And like, we're scared because people have hurt us.
So it's okay to be scared, but it's not okay to ask for help. Is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't say it. It's okay for both. The thing is that we're saying that we don't need help. Well, we need is
Right.
support.
And
There's
so
a
the reason
different.
I'm
It's a
asking
different
is
ask when we're coming. When we're coming, like the help that we need is not a tangible help me lift this. It's more
gotcha.
like like fuck man, and then we just need to go get him tiger, you know. And then now it's like raw.
All right. So it sounds like communication is key, right? And a lot of the breakdown is
Hold on,
miscommunication.
hold on, hold on, hold on. Dad, you are a part of the solution. You don't have to be a part of every part or the brain part because 9 times out of 10, we already have the solution. We just have to go do it. But we're pissed about it. So it's literally no problem. This is why we don't do it because we feel like it's bitchy.
Mm.
I have to go and do this. I because of how I feel, I don't have a choice.
So
I
here's
have
we go back to the concept of hypermasculinity, right? Because you just mentioned if we're asking for help or if we get them to assist us, or venting, over venting can be misconstrued as bitching, right?
no. It's that we feel that way. They
Who's
don't.
we?
The men, we men
Oh,
feel that way. The women
okay,
are they're listening. They're listening to the whole shit because they do this shit every day. Like they come in and like, can you believe this bitch wears the same dress as me? And we're like, yo, take off the dress. Don't ever wear it again. And you're like, no. And they got to get it all out. So they get it. They give us that space. But
mm-hmm.
then they still love us though. And love is a verb. It's not a noun. So they want to do something. But they don't like we all don't understand presence. Presence is so important. We're not human doings. We're human beings. R.I.P. to Wayne Dyer.
So here, but you can't close yourself off, right?
Yes,
You
I
can't
can.
communicate. No, you can't. Like you don't live in a silo.
No, not when you're okay. So here's the thing: you can't when you're deep in a relationship. Like when you're like here, you can't close yourself off. But when you're a gypsy nomad like myself, who's literally here today, there tomorrow, I absolutely can close myself off because I have to protect myself. I said earlier on my other live, my biggest fear I faced it this week because I didn't even know what it was. My biggest fear is that I'm going to create something fucking phenomenal and somebody's going to hurt my feelings and I'm going to knock that shit over.
Hmm. And so why not seek help to avoid that fear becoming a reality?
Because I already have the solution. The
Which
solution
is
is Field of
cut
Dreams.
everybody off.
No, not it's not. But it's not really a cut off. It's like I need to go over. I need to go here, and so I'm retreating. It's a cocooning thing. I've got to go build, and if you build it, they will come.
But a lot of the greats that built didn't necessarily all built by themselves.
No, but they had a plan already though, and then other people just came in and executed the plan. But until I'm ready for the plan to be executed by the team, other people are just. It's just a lot of shit for me.
But in order for the plan to be effective, don't you need to communicate that plan out to the people? Like let's use upcoming show
When
that
I'm
we're
ready.
working on.
When I'm ready.
So let's take a couple steps back, right? So you have an upcoming show that we're working on right now, and it's myself, yourself, Deb, and Takia, and it literally sparked off as a conversation between two giants in our history that inspired you to have a conversation with Takia that had a conversation with myself and then Deb involved, right? Now, that plan to fruition was not all on you and you alone, right? Because this goes back to this is why we don't smoke on the lot, right? This is all about communication, right? So I say that to say because in order for this plan to come to fruition, you came to me with, hey, this is something I'm thinking about, but you already had an idea where you wanted to go, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you're like, I don't know how to technically implement it myself. Mm-hmm. Right? And you trusted the fact that Takia has a level of skill sets that you don't, which is anything related to business because you don't want to do it, right?
Yes.
And then we pulled in Deb for the marketing and branding pieces, right?
Yes.
So you communicated and you asked for help.
I needed the help.
Right. So are you saying that you only
in those
ask
other
instances need it?
Yes. Why would I ask it if I don't need it? Why would I just said that I would never put on somebody else's plate something that I don't need to put there. That's not my as I'm a stress relief I was a stress relief specialist. I would never I would never do that.
Okay. But
maybe I'll come and report after I solved it, but I'm not gonna no, I got it.
So but is that because what I'm trying to kind of bring back here is relying on your relationships, right? Because sometimes you don't necessarily have to spin on all these wheels and trying to figure out yourself when there are other people in your community, in your circles that can definitely help you get there faster.
Yes, but there are certain things that I have to do. Nobody can drive this truck for me.
And that's not, and I think you're taking the context into that literal.
No. Right? But what I'm saying is that I would bitch about being in the truck, and I would complain to somebody about being in the truck. But I already.
But you're not running a trucking business. But you're not running a trucking business alone.
But there's nobody else that can drive the truck. I'm the only person with the CDL. So I have to do this.
Right, but yet the problem that you have at hand is something that your team is working on to resolve up until, right, you can find a driver, correct?
There's no problem. Everything's we already have drivers in school. That's what I'm saying. The shit is already laid out. It's just that I am an impatient motherfucker. So when I can see a vision, I want that vision here now. Okay. And that's the kid in me, because I'm why not now? But I understand that I'm learning as I grow, and as years become less and less time to wait, I'm learning to be patient. I'm learning to use patience and those pauses as a tool.
Awesome. Claudius, thank you for joining. I appreciate you jumping on. We're talking about relationships, how they impact our mental wellness. And we're on the topic of asking for help, right? And there's a thin line between hypermasculinity and actually needing help, where we are taught or we're driven that we should be doing everything ourselves. And then there's the aspect of, in the midst of complaining about trying to figure this thing to ourselves, we're venting to our mates who struggle with whether we're venting or we're asking for help, right? And in the concept of we should be doing this ourselves, we struggle to really define the line where help versus just venting lies. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We touched on a couple other topics, which was in the process of, and thank you again for walking my beautiful wife down the aisle, and your amazing prayers during dinner and at the end of the ceremony. So I just want to say thank you for that publicly. But you also mentioned something at the dinner, right? Is you want to make sure the man is supported. The man and the woman are here to support one another, but far too often the men are neglected in that process. So let's take a couple of steps back and let's talk about where your mindset is on that, and kind of just pick your brain there.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Brother Copeland. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am honored. Forgive my lateness. I got so turned around with this East Coast West Coast time, and so but I'm here. And also, I want to give props to you for such a beautiful memory. I This is something that will stay with me, forever. So thank you for allowing me to join that beautiful ceremony with you and your now beautiful wife. I can't tell if I'm still on or not. Am I still
You're
on?
still on.
Yeah,
You're still on. I'm
you're
just
good.
messing around with the layout. My apologies.
Okay, okay. Oh boy, in fact, I'm glad this has come up because even though I'm in the field and I've been in the field for like 30 years now,
Hmm.
the last 15 years as a mental health professional. Um, so Copeland, I'm a licensed clinical social worker here in California, and
I
I'm
live in Long Beach.
oh, wonderful, man. And so I am, so there's a group practice. So there's like maybe 30 of us. We're all people of color, predominantly Black folks. And so during the last 2 years, I have seen just a huge increase in the brothers saying, you know what, maybe it's time that I come and talk to somebody before I kill somebody.
Wow.
And it's beautiful to see because I have seen a shift, in brothers, uh, just calling us, especially, and even the brothers who are coming out the penitentiary. You know,
Mm.
I think one of my biggest compliments that I got was this brother who was forced to come see me by his parole officer, and he was hooing and howling, fuck this, I don't need this shit. And
Oh wait,
then,
I can curse with you. I thought you were a priest.
No, he wasn't. Look, it hasn't stopped you from the beginning, so
I was like, damn. I was like, how am I gonna do this? Slow and steady, Cole. Slow and
slow
steady.
and steady, that's right. And so, so after the second, I believe it was the second session that I had with him, because he had been down over 7 years, and just see what's coming out, trying to make heads or tails of stuff. And he said to me, if I knew therapy was going to be like this, I would have been came a long time ago.
Mm,
Because talking to you, just like just having a conversation with my uncle.
mm,
That was one of the biggest compliments I ever got. When the term therapy, was not seen as or viewed as felt as therapy. It was
right,
just
right.
more of a conversation between two brothers,
Mm,
which I appreciated. I also think that it's been a blessing to me, because I started off, in my own therapy over 30 years ago, and still up until recently, a couple of months ago.
mm,
Even us in the profession, guess what? We still have relationships with our wives and with our children, and I better not, try to Janae used to call therapize our relationship. So you leave that shit, your professionalism, in your office, or when you come home, I'm your wife and you my husband.
right, right.
And so I appreciated that because I have a tendency, to go back to my default, which is what I do.
So if you don't mind me asking, and this is a question I asked Copeland, is we manage a lot of, and this is a perfect kind of segue for me to go back to it. We manage a lot of different relationships, right? Especially as you as a therapist, um, you manage multiple people, you manage your friends, and when I say manage, it's not like controlling, right? It's being able to almost compartmentalize yourself into each and every person that you come across. How do you kind of like determine when these things are starting to have a toll on your peace? Because as a therapist, you have a therapist, right? But how do you start realizing like, oh, this is starting to become a problem for me?
For me, it's a level of consciousness, it's a level of consultation, it's a level of showing up in my authentic self, where I get to just let my hair down. That part of me that's still the jokester, the 12 years old boy that still likes to come out and play, and play tricks on my wife, much to her chagrin. But that's part of the whole get down. I do believe in heavy, heavy self care.
Mm-hmm.
Mean that I may be meditating, reflecting, or praying, upwards to 4 or 5 times a day throughout the day. It's a way of recentering myself, which helps me. Definitely a proponent of the gym. I just, cardio, throw some weights in there, you know. Um, and, when I'm able to, touch that creative side of me, which is also grounding, that would mean getting out in the yard, doing my roses, or planting some new stuff that I never tried before. And doing things with my best friend, just going out having fun, which is my wife. We just, not forgetting that we still love to dance. Although we're well past 60, sometimes we think we're still 30.
Hey,
And
look, it's the age is but a number sometimes until you gotta get that Benadryl. I mean that pain medication the next day.
you know what?
Um,
I
so
I I,
so
I, I didn't get to a point where I was going to try what you did.
Oh
Uh,
no! I wouldn't ask you to do that. No, I wouldn't ask you to do that. So Copeland, he's talking about doing the donkey kick, and I realized after doing it, I shouldn't have done it in the first place. So I'm still suffering from it today, right now.
One
Um,
hop. One hop is all I do anywhere.
exactly.
That's it.
So when
Running
it
them
comes to
jumps.
relationships, right? So um, you mentioned how you deal with everybody. How important is communication, right?
uh,
Especially when you're in your good days, your bad days. when you need to just, like you said, your wife is your best friend, right? So one of the questions that came up is, when you're just venting to your wife, does she know that you're just venting, or are you reaching out for help to kind of help resolve the issue that you're venting for? Because I think that there's a fine line between venting and asking for help, and a lot of times you have a long-standing relationship. You guys have built a communication, your own communication lexicon, right? And so how did you go about like devising when to vent and she know it's venting versus when you're actually seeking help from her?
Yeah, I think we got our cues. I mean, she'll in fact ask me, do you want feedback on this, or are you just venting? And vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes as men, we want to fix stuff, right? Well, I learned that that's probably not the best thing we want to do when our significant others is coming to talk to us. They're not necessarily, the bottom line is not trying to fix things or make it right. It's just about, let me say what I need to say, let me get it off my chest, let me process it, and fixing it is irrelevant. But I just need you to hear me. And
Right.
so we have our cues, and so I know when she wants feedback, she'll ask for it, and vice versa.
Gotcha. So let me ask a question here. This was something that was posed to me. How important is our men's circle? And that's for both of you guys to answer. You're on mute.
You, you're mute.
You can no, I think he's letting you go first.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, I used to be so envious when I see how all the sisters would come together, because some of our sisters, they are like ride and die. They support one another. They come to their rescue. And I'm laying back, man, I want something like this. Wouldn't this be nice for the brothers to be able to come into our own and just be there to support one another? But to answer your question, I think it's very important. I would love to see more of it.
And so in coming up, did you grow up with a large male influence, or was it the opposite?
Yeah, just the opposite. So it's a family of nine. I never known my father, but my mother was always the head of the household.
Mm.
Like, so what she said went, right, wrong, and that's how I learned. So it was definitely more of a matriarch.
And so throughout your years, you've been more gravitated towards friends of the opposite sex as opposed to like like other men, because it's like I found it difficult to, like, I'll speak for me. Like, I grew up with all women, right? My mom was that, like you said, the head of a household. Although I know my dad, mom was the head of the household. She was running things, and I had three other sisters on top of that, right? And so for me, I always had feminine energy around me, and masculine energy always felt uncomfortable, right? Because it felt like we were competing for eyes, we were competing for whatever it was, and it just wasn't something that I appreciated until I literally got to high school and started playing sports, right? You start realizing that that level of camaraderie, I can never say that word right. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That
Camaraderie.
level of camaraderie, yeah, you got that. Was always something that I felt like I was missing, just like you, right? It's like you see although they may, and don't kill me for this, right? They may bicker at each other, but there's always an underlying, like, I love you. I can fight with you because I love you. Whereas we know when they don't like somebody, it's like lights out for them. You know what I mean? And so Copeland is one of a lot of few bros in my man circle, in the fact that, like, we are each other's strong friend or big friend or good friend, but we check in on each other. You know what I mean? To the point where it's like we were talking on our live earlier. We might go like 2-3 years not talking, but as soon as we kick back up, it's like we never left off. You know, have you been able to, in the last, let's say, couple years, been able to reach back to some of your guy friends and be like, hey, we should communicate more? Because I know during the pandemic with Zoom, that's the best way people have been trying to rekindling their friendships.
Yeah, no, for me, I wish I'd had that, so just to put a little perspective on this, although I was raised in Brooklyn until I was 18, I've been in California ever since. So a
Mm,
lot of my friends at the time, they were either doing long prison time or just disappear off the face of the earth. So, so I didn't have that. I wish
mm,
I had that. So I don't have like grade school friends. Up until maybe 3 years ago, I lost, my best friend, you
mm.
know,
My condolences.
uh, of 25 years, 30 years, probably more like 30 years. So he was my ace because I'm from Bed-Stuy and he was from uh, uh, the community right next to. I don't know why I can't think of it now. But so he was from there, but we met out here.
Mm.
We used to go back and forth, traveling back home together, and so I miss. Although I have four, I have uh, let's see, I have four other brothers,
Mm.
so that kind of helped a little bit. But I miss not having a network of close friends like I used to. So that's something that you know, I am still in the process of development.
And I'm gonna get to you, Copeland. I just want to kind of dive into this because you're the elder statesman in this on this chat on this conversation, and us. Do you think it's demographic? And I'm gonna break it down. Generational, location, just age group and profession. Just to kind of because I meet new people every day, right? Like, and there are people that just automatically gravitate into my circle. There are people that aren't. But do you find it that like that move from New York to California, there was a different, I guess, way of bonding with other men in those areas?
But to a degree, because for me, there's always the East Coast and the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And even though, I've been gone for many years, there's still that East Coast vibe flavor, if you will. And I tend to resonate with more people. I mean, our shared experience, our lived experience, seem to align more, with the brothers, like on the East Coast. And in terms of my profession, I have some wonderful acquaintances, so I'm a member of ABSI, the Black Psychologists Association, and the Black Social Workers Organization. And so I have a community, but in terms of just having a close friendship, a network of people, kind of like what you and Copeland
Mm-hmm.
have, that I don't have. But part of it is because, quite frankly, I have just been too busy. So it's not something that, you know, there were more important things, and with my family and with my career and with the folks I manage, that just took precedent.
And last question. Do you think that, and then I'm not sure if you're well or not well, but do you think that plays a toll in your where you are happiness wise, right? And outside of your family, there's not another circle that you can kind of jump into, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it makes sense. I think, so I I'm very active even at 68. I have my RV, so I can jump in and go camping when I want. I still ride my Harley. I still got my bicycle, and so there are things that I enjoy doing, by myself. Janae is not getting on the back of my motorcycle. She made that clear when I first got it. There's a lot of stuff that I really enjoy doing by myself.
Okay.
We, so when it comes time to socialize, when that does happen with a group of brothers, if we meet. So before the pandemic, the group of us met once a month, which was beautiful. So there's a part of me that is yearning for that to come back again. So there's that.
Okay. So Cope, how important is your men's circle?
As you guys were talking, I was thinking about it. I've always had men in my circle. Like I have my father. I grew up with my father. He's still in the house. Doesn't do shit. He's still there. And I have three brothers. So now that I'm looking at when I had really good friends, I say it all the time. I call them my brothers, and I actually feel that way, about them. So I've always had, and honestly, I've always had older men look out for me because I was wilding at some points in time. So I've always,
Some points in time.
listen, I calmed down. I calmed down a lot. Like, I definitely calmed down a lot because I don't wild out now. Everything I do now is strategic, even if it seems a little hot. But I've always had men who were older who took interest in me, and it's because they could see me where the rest of the world couldn't. So what I'm trying to say is that the men's circle is literally one of the most important things that we have because everybody needs it. The women need their
Yes.
circles too because they need places. We all need places where we're understood without having to explain ourselves. So we can explain on a different level.
Right.
We understand how if somebody calls you a bitch and is in your face and you hit them, we don't have to talk about. So just somebody says something, like we don't have to talk about that. Yeah, like we don't have to talk about that at all. It's done. Like what? Like then it just gets we can move faster because
Right.
we can understand each other. And then what that also does is it teaches us in our own groups, it teaches us friendship because we're building that, but it also teaches us how to articulate how we feel. So now when the groups mingle, because the cliques that mingled was when we really had, like in college, like that's when we really had the good relationships. We had the good energy. Like we would be going to people's houses just to chill. Like that was the vibe, and it was love. And it wasn't even like we're trying to fuck. Like we had that group that's just like we're cooking, like we're hanging out, especially the bros and the red. So yeah, it makes it easier for us to come together because we're not as desperate for love.
And I'll add to that, similar to you, I'm gravitated towards the older men because I'm in a weird, like, I think I grew up in a weird generation. Cope and I are probably we're in the same generation where we're not wavy enough for the younger generation, but we're also not at the same plane at our generation. And we're kind of like, we're a lot more mature than our generation. So the next generation before us is usually the group that takes us in, right? So like I literally have been traveling the world with a group of 50-plus-year-old men because they see things the same way that I see it. It's about the experience. It's about wellness. It's about making sure that you take the time out for yourself. And these guys have kids, families, wives, and I'm here like solo dolo, but like on these conversations, they're giving me investment tips. They're giving me relationship advice. They're telling me things to look out for. When you go buy a house, what to do. Whereas somebody my age, we're pretty much trying to figure it out. Like at the age of 40, there's still a lot of people trying to figure it out if they don't have an elder statesman kind of guiding them through. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And so, and I think a lot of times, as an elder statesman, you have to be open to accept the younger youth, younger men to come in, because I think we get into a place where we start like dividing ourselves between, where we are in life, how much we make, the different statuses we have in our communities. And that tends to create a divide, which, isn't even necessary, because at the end of the day, we have two ideals, and I think one is more divisive than the other, right? We go to the old school ideas of the talented 10. They only the cream rise to the top. If you're not up here, you're not on my level. And then we have lifting as we climb, right? I'm all about the lifting as we climb, because as Copeland liked to quote, Bridge Builder is one of the most, I think, pivotal poems that I've ever learned. Because at the end of the day, the story is about, as an elder statesman, you've already paved the path. You've crossed that bridge. You've crossed that chasm. Like, you should be able to, if asked, help us come back, help us come across without having to go through some of those similar pitfalls, right? And I'm not sure if it's, in some cases, it's a bitterness or whatever might have you, but it's one of those situations where it's like everyone does not have that luxury of an elder statesman. Like, hey, let me bring you along. Like, ride my coattails. And once again, riding coattails doesn't always have to be a negative thing.
Right.
It can be a apprenticeship. It can be a mentorship. It can be, a sponsor. But I think as I learned from them, I'm now passing that information down, paying it forward. And I think that's kind of the important part of my friend circle, my men's circle.
I have a different view on the talented 10 principle.
Go ahead.
Like, I don't think so. I believe in it. Like, there is a 10% of us at the top, and I do believe that 10% can make things a lot better for everybody else. Like, that's literally how cultures and traditions are usually made and maintained anyway. But it's different. Like, my value to put you in the top 10% has different check marks. Like, yeah, you want to have some money or whatever, or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's really more so about your constitution, because you can have money or not have money and not really give a shit about the community. And if you don't give a shit about the community, you cannot be in the talented 10 because you're damaged. And I express to you how I feel. Like, any man who has a healthy mental constitution wants to take care of himself, his family, and his community. It's just natural.
And so you feel as though that those barometers, that's your barometer of determining who would be.
That's one of them.
Okay.
That's one of them. Like, of course, you have to be smart. Like, you can't just be like, "Hey, I love everybody," like, and then the cream always rises to the top. And so, once you make it known that love for the community is a thing, and then also that there's no real benefit, there's just a lot of fucking work up here.
But the cream doesn't rise to the top alone, though. That's what I'm saying is, like, I think, but I acknowledge your perspective, right? I just want you to let you know that I do acknowledge what you're saying. Like, there are things that would make you a talented temp. Just because you're a specific stature, a specific finance, or a specific place in your life doesn't make you any better than anybody else, right? But I do think that there are people that think because they're, let's use, the national 1%, right? Like, come on, they think that they're immune to everything. They should be exempt from everything, and they don't have to pay the same prices that we do. And I think sometimes our talented 10 consume that mindset. Well, I could be wrong here.
Yeah,
right?
Because
it's all in how we handle our relationships that really will determine whether or not I can I assume you to be on my level.
Let me throw a monkey wrench in there. So our talented 10th has a very hard time identifying itself because they're
Mm,
usually poached. And so they never really, and they're usually poached young. And so they never really get the opportunity to develop the love and understanding of the love from the community because they're not really in the community. Because in our community, one of the barometers of success is getting out. So if you have a kid and some white guy heard him talk and they're like, yeah, this guy, I'm going to give him a scholarship to a school, you're not going to keep him in the bum ass public school because you know how they fund those schools. You're going to send them to that school. So it's like a process of really poaching our best. Like our best should be in the HBCUs because then that is how they get better funding by putting out like these people who can now turn back and do it. But we're so enamored by the stature and how those institutions will grease the wheel for you a little bit more, even as a black man. You know, being a Harvard man or a Cornell guy or a Stanford guy, you know, like that, it does move a needle. Maybe not too far, but further than me coming in there being like, "Hey, oh, you got a lighter?" Like my blunt went out.
So Claudius, what are your thoughts on that?
You know, as, as I try to look at, put it in perspective, well, to be transparent, I don't know that I know a lot of folks in the top 10, much less the top 1%. But having said that, I think that as you get older, part of what brings you joy is the ability to give back what was given to you to those behind you. And we had a saying, you keep what you got by giving it away.
Mm,
So the love, the consciousness that you have, it grows, it intensifies when you give it away because you're constantly rekindling it. It's dynamic. So I think part of when you do that, it keeps you healthy. Love, love, love. When somebody is benefiting from my experience or can relate to something that I said. I think from an older man's perspective, it's great joy in that.
mm, okay. So um so I have this question. At what point do we determine when to end or give less equity to our mental space in our relationships, right? Whether it be friends, siblings, children, romantic, right? Like, how do we determine when, like, we do that, right? Because the hardest thing to do is, I know for me, it may not seem it right now, but one of the hardest things for me to do is kind of distance myself from one of my siblings, right? And the reason behind it is just you're not showing up. How much should I continue to pour in? And this goes to Copeland's, statement. I'm I guess a glutton for pain because I continue to give those luxuries, give those what was the phrase, Copeland? Grace.
Grace,
I
yeah,
continue
grace.
to give grace when it continues to be spat into my face. You know what I mean? And so I find the struggle of just either cutting people off or just giving them less equity into my mental space. Like, how do y'all either determine how to go about doing that, or if it should be done at all?
It was easy for me. In
Mm,
college, I was friends with Alade and Kalade. I was able to step back and watch them as the Golden Boys. Everybody wanted to be their friend. And I saw all the people that wanted to be their friend. And all of those people weren't cool. And all of those people weren't good. And I didn't want that. And I decided in that moment right there that I didn't never wanted to be a golden boy. I would much rather people be afraid of me and then kind of like do some tippy toe thing and kind of find out, because then that leaves me less to filter through. And I'm 100% okay with that. I don't need a million friends. Like, it's not a necessity. What I need is for our community to grow. I don't need a million friends. So
Mm.
I can, and I believe my mental health and keeping my shit together is more important than anybody's feelings outside of my son.
Mm. Well stated. Claudius?
No, love that. Love that. Love what he said. I think that, I have some siblings who are still out there in the mix, right? And love them to death, but, I do have to love them from a distance. So these are not, so much as I love them, they're not the people who are going to be coming to my house to eat, to sleep. We're not, lessons have taught me that that's not the best thing to do for me or my wife.
Mm.
And so, realistically, I have to hold them in small doses, here, there, but they can't be part of my life because they're not ready
Mm.
for whatever reason. So again, love them to death. Always, I'm the third oldest in my family of nine, and I remember the pureness of each one of them. So I don't forget that. But when I see a couple of them today, say, hey, bro, I'm gonna give you a hug. I'm gonna say, hey, I love you, but I'm gonna keep on stepping because I know where you're at, and I
Mm.
just can't be around that anymore.
Gotcha.
Of the reason why I moved. I wanted to speak about that. You know, that's a big part of the reason why I moved the way that I moved. It's not necessarily an indictment on people. People are great people. I move in a way that, in some time, especially for people who have routines or maybe have triggers, I trigger. I'm gonna trigger you. I'm going through fires. Like I feel like I was saying with the talented 10 thing. I think this is where I was going with it. I feel an obligation to the community because I feel like I have that stuff. And I don't want to, and I'll be honest with you, and I'm still I reconciled with this, but this was the first feeling that I had that I was telling you about was that I don't want to do it. I'm tired because I don't want to do the work anymore. I want to just go and sit somewhere and like kick back. And I realized that what it really was transitioning into, because my new measure of success is my replaceability. But then as
Mm.
we were having the conversation earlier and today, right now, I'm realizing that that's my DNA speaking, because that's the nature of nature. My son is my replacement. And that's just a natural progression of things. Trying to hold on and not letting the youth come through and live is not natural. And so
So,
that's where I reconcile the two now.
so you mentioned that you're triggering. Was that intentional, or it just
No.
happens the way you are triggers people?
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's I'm gonna do whatever. Like if I see this opportunity over here and I was supposed to go over there, I'm gonna already be a little bit late.
Mm.
And I have a higher tolerance for risk because I don't have a lot of the inner working conditioning. So when somebody says something to me and they're like, "Yeah, this is the way it is. These are the rules," I'm like, "So y'all all do that? Like y'all all let them tell you that? That's not. No, I'm not doing that. Like, how dare you?" So I move differently. I had a friend that told me that she would be worried about dating me because if she ever had to go to the school, if I'm playing basketball and somebody's fucking with my kid, I'm going to come to the school sweaty in my basketball stuff. I might take off my sneakers. But like there are other people who are like every time I go to the school, I'm going to be dressed up. They're always going to see me in a suit and tie so that they can respect me. But I walk in like, you're not about to look at me and tell me that you're not going to respect me, because you can do that. but we're gonna talk, and then you're gonna see then something like shit's gonna shift really, really quickly, really quickly.
So it sounds. I want to ask a question, but I'm not sure if it's the right way to ask it. Like, are you operating off of your own level of privilege in your relationships?
No,
Because it doesn't seem like it's one where it's like, and the reason I'm asking is because once you moving by the beat of your own drum, right? And so that means that you are Switzerland. You do what you want to do, how you want to do it, with no outside intervention. But that's like, people who like, well, rather ask for forgiveness than for permission. I think
yeah,
those type of people are people that kind of live off of a sense of privilege, right? And not in like the grand scheme of white supremacy, but within your own social circles. Like, I deserve it. Not deserve. I'm entitled to this.
it is definitely a privilege to be free because I don't feel any of the restraints. Like if I feel like doing something, I'm going to do it, which is why the person for me has to have. They don't have to move to the beat of my drum. They just have to have a cadence. All the drums don't have to be playing the same beat, as long as we're playing the same song.
Hmm.
I'm not trying to control what you do with your drum. Like you've seen drum circles. They don't be sitting there like, yo, you do the 1, 2, up, up. Like they don't do that. Everybody just gets in and they feel it and they go with the feeling. And it sounds fucking beautiful. No organizer, no nothing. Human beings sitting and connecting on a different plane. And I think one of the things that I do to people, that's unfair. I've lived with myself for a very long time. So I trust myself 100%. And I project that onto other people. And when they don't, it disappoints me. It literally hurts my feelings. I'm like, yo, I'm like 15 and 0 here. Like, what the fuck? And, but they didn't see nothing. Like I'm projecting that. Like I was talking to Takia and we had an argument. It was a discussion. She was based up. And it was the problem, and I had to stop. I had to use the pause as a tool because something wasn't happening that normally happens when we talk. And I'm like, what is it? And it was me. She had a concern that to me wasn't a concern because that's like, yeah, I got that. It's like, it's not a concern for me. So I wasn't able to address her concern because I couldn't, even though she was telling it to me. I'm like, okay, so I don't get it. What's wrong? Like, it's cool. 15 and 0, baby. You know what I mean? 16-time world champion. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the problem here?
So Claudius, what is your thought on that? Right? I think there are a lot of people that operate on this, and I use privilege, but that might not be the right word, right? Like,
no, it's the right word.
Cope has lived with himself for so long that, and when and it's figuratively and literally, right? To the sense where like the only person he can truly trust is himself.
Yeah.
And so going into society or integrating into society, it's one of those where, and I'm not saying Cope is the anti-establishment establisher. So he's that person that's like, he's running his own trucking company, but he's anti-capitalism, anti-business. So there's levels to this gentleman right here. So, what are your thoughts?
I think that it's a blessing when you get to the point where you can operate on an optimal level. And I borrowed that phrase from Sister Dr. Myers, where spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, physically, that you can operate at this high level all the time. And part of the task is to understand that that's your gift, that you don't have to flow in a substandard level at all at any time, but that your gift Your privilege, if you will, is to operate at that optimal level. It's a much healthier way of living.
Mm.
In fact, it may allow you to live even a healthier, longer life. I do think also that you do get to the point, privilege level of consciousness where you do know yourself, right? You do know what makes you happy, who you want to connect with. You know, you're not going to be subjected to the trivial bullshit that's out there. You know, you've lived. You know, yeah, it's okay to admit I've arrived here. It wasn't gifted to me. I paid my dues, and I'm comfortable with that. And I also recognize that sometimes you got to stop running in the pony parks and run with the thoroughbreds. Not I'm not That's no shame on the ponies. You know, they do what they do, but also you recognize that your life have become more intentional, more purposeful, more rewarding, and you go with that. And what this person over here said doesn't matter. So what? I mean, I hear your opinion, but all right.
Look at that black boy joy right there. Look at that smile. Hold up, you're on mute. Can't hear you. There you go.
I mean, that's exactly what it is, and it's my freedom, your freedom ends where another person's begins, and I don't ever want to hinder anybody or make people feel away, but I also know that I'm,
Oh, we're
I come
losing.
with. No, I'm gone. Am I back?
Oh, you're good now.
Am I back? Oh, okay. But yeah, like I know that I have to move in certain ways to accomplish the things that I need to accomplish. And so I need somebody who understands the bigger picture, just like you said. It has to be somebody who's on some thoroughbred shit. And the sad part about it is, like, you would think that you could just go into like a social justice symposium or something, and everybody would be like, "Yeah, boom, bang, bow," but it's not. It's
Mm.
not anywhere. It really is. There's so many. It's like past ships passing in the ocean. Yeah, every now and again a ship crashes or whatever, but there's a lot of times that it's not the ship that you're looking for. So, you just it doesn't for me. I used to not like people and think that they were bad, but I realized that people aren't bad. People are just under something that they shouldn't be under. There is a system out here that doesn't care about humanity at all. Like, fuck black, white, nothing.
Yeah.
It
Mhm.
doesn't it doesn't at all. It cares about numbers and processes and results. And there's a bunch of people that aren't insulated enough to really deal with that. And for us, it's a lot of black men who they're dealing with it, but they're not dealing with it.
Mm.
It's festering. And then you see the things like man shoots up post office or some shit. Like, we don't really do that type of crazy shit, but we'll hit somebody for bumping us too hard. Like, we'll hit them really hard and go home and be like, damn, that wasn't even for him. And then you call your friend and you're like, I just hit somebody because of you. It should have been you.
So that leads me to the next question, right? How do we continue to work on our relationships such that they're healthy for us, right?
Say that
I,
one more time.
how do we continue to work on our relationships such that they're healthy for us? I think we engage in a lot of unhealthy relationships, um, uh, um, and I hope we're able to identify when they're not. But how do we continue um, to nurture the good ones that we have?
Keep talking about it. Good black men don't get enough press. We're boring.
Mm.
We're boring as fuck. So we don't get enough press. And so we have to be talking about it. And we don't necessarily have to talk about it to other people. Let's just talk about it amongst ourselves because we already know that we need that. And so just the matter of having a circle, like me seeing two black men here who I can respect and who I can love, that does something for me. And it's a good thing. Like, that's what we need. We just need to keep talking about it. And the more we talk about it, the more it'll happen because somebody's gonna hear.
Yeah.
Somebody's
No.
somebody's asking for advice.
It's not real advice. It's trolling. Hold up. Let me get it out of the way. Um,
Who the hell is that?
but anywho, I don't know. That person's getting blocked. It's definitely a troll. But I want to say thank you. Oh, Claudius, you didn't get a chance to answer that question.
No, I think that when we're open to communicating with one another as we're doing now, it breaks that closed loop circle. So if you constantly are just vibing with yourself and you having the same thoughts and you're not open to other energies, other spirit, being entertained with yours, then that I think that becomes problematic because all you see is yourself. I love the idea of having an open circle because it allows more energy, more ideas, more perspectives to come in. And I think at the base of that is a natural desire to see you do well. I mean that's as a black man, when I applaud when one of us are having successes. It's never about envy. It's like, brother, I love what you're doing, man. I just love, 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 love it. Let me get some of that energy. I hope some of that rub off on me. But so it's with that type of love and with that type of intentionality and just with that type of humanity that I think if we allow ourselves to have that, we have that naturally.
Mm, I like that. I like that. So I want to leave off with Claudius. Do you have anything coming up, or what do you want people to know about you, or how they can reach you? For those that are watching this all over again, or for
Uh,
those that are still out here that may want to reach out to you.
yeah, I'm here in the Bay Area. A part of what makes me happy is the ability to give back, mentoring folks. I mean, that makes me happy. That makes me laugh. That brings me joy. I have probably some of the baddest interns you ever want to meet, and so it's a pleasure for me to exchange ideas, with them, because I get as much out of it as they do, So, and for the brothers out there, I think that it's beautiful when you can have a safe space and place that you can be yourself, that you can be authentic, that you can
Right.
show up, with just love and just there's no images. There no nobody else. We don't have to monitor or censor ourselves because somebody other than ourselves is in our circle,
Right. Right.
and that's important. So it's about, okay, if you need help, there are brothers out there who are willing to reach back and hold on to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. What you got going on,
Yes.
Cool?
So I have a passionate plea to all of my brothers out there. Hear me and hear me closely. I understand very much. We as black men don't feel like we are loved and nurtured. And black women do not feel like they are protected. The irony of it is that the protection that we would be providing would provide the space for them to do the nurturing that is required for us to be able to do the protecting, which is required for them to do the nurturing. But that cycle has been broken. We're both afraid. Right now, we have an opportunity as black men. I know we got some issues with our black women. We have some issues with ourselves also. Now's not the time to talk about that. With this Roe versus Wade shit that we got going on, I implore us to take the first step and let's just back them. Because even on a regular strategic art of war level, would you rather the crazy, and I'm just extreme, would you rather a crazy black woman or a crazy white man controlling your fate? That sounds like an easy question to me. So let's let us take the first step and kickstart the healing. And we'll just stand with them. And I'll let you, my sisters, understand, like, I got your back. But we're going to talk when we get home.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining the episode. As you guys know, season 3 of Getting My Cheese Back on My Cracker is kicking off. We had some technical difficulties last week. We will be returning with episode 1 on April 18th. Claudius, hopefully we can get you on that episode. And we are working on a couple of other shows under the Getting My Cheese on My Cracker umbrella. And this will be a monthly conversation where we hope to have gentlemen from all over the diaspora to talk about the topics that impact us worldwide. I don't think a lot of these issues are specific to us here in the United States. We have our brothers in the Netherlands. We have our brothers in Africa. We have our brothers in Asia that are all going through similar issues. And I think us being able to have a safe space like this to have the conversation is very important, like Claudius and Copeland has mentioned. So with that said, please, we want you to subscribe, like, and comment. Let us know what you think in the comments, and then enable that notification so that you guys know when the next episode drops. With that said, peace.